What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Blitz Brawl, the weekly showdown where we pit community member against community member in a showdown to see who can survive with the most gold and ultimately take the formidable middle golden hex. As always, I'm joined by the wonderful Speed Robo. How are we doing this week, my friend?
We're doing very well this week, incredibly well. Our Kickstarter rolled out this week. It's been a blast. We've seen a ton of new people join the server, a ton of people playing the game. Even right now, we've got people in chat that I was just glanced over and looked at that, and they're having a blast playing the game. I'm having a blast playing the game. So let's show some of that game.
Indeed, indeed. And as you said, yes, Kickstarter live now. All the credentials, the links, everything you need to know about where you should be, not where you are now, where you should be, is down in the description below. So make sure you check that out if you want to go check out the Kickstarter, the Discord, the community, or anything like that. Now, as the clue gives, or as the title gives a clue to, this is a Blitz format mode of Legacy's Law. No drafting involved. However, the players do place their units out at the beginning of the game purely to base around placement on the board. You can counter place your opponent effectively there. So yeah, enough of us waffling on or chatting on or leading into it. I think it's time we jump in. I believe we've got Dex taking on Empire this week. Is that correct?
That should be correct. We'll be seeing these two players join our room and get into it very soon.
Nice. All right. See you over in the game, guys.
All right. We've got both players, Empire and Dex, on the field. Empire is going to be red and Dex is going to be blue. They're rolling off to determine who is deploying first. If you get first deployment, you show your opponent a bit of your moves, but you get to make the first move. You know, so it's like playing white in chess.
Yep.
And the factions we've got today, Empire's playing Sylvan, and Dex is playing Arengard. Sylvan's pretty sneaky. They're going to want to circle around the board, stab some backline. And Arengard's, pretty balanced.
Yes, yeah. Arengard, I find, is definitely the most versatile. And I know all factions are versatile and very versatile at that. But Arengard, I feel like let's refer to a video game. You know, there's a video game character that has equal stat lines in every single bar. I feel like that's Arengard. Like they do everything very well. But they're not like a master of one set way. Whereas I feel like Gaff have their kind of lean heavily more one way and Sylvan another way. And I love seeing Sylvan play. So I'm really excited to see Sylvan play. And especially with a pilot like Empire, it's going to be exciting to see. So what's going on now?
Yeah. So what we're doing is we're putting down different cards to try and figure out what the opponent's moves are. As you can see, both players are putting down their cards in the back row. These are going to be their supporting cards with abilities that help their other more frontline units do battle better. This could either be through healing or through helping them maneuver around the field. In Sylvan's case, we're going to be seeing a lot of maneuvering abilities, and in Arengard's case, a lot of healing. So what I would expect is that these Heavy Knights on Dex's back are going to be placed in the front row, because Heavy Knight has big movement, big power, and big health. And that's what you want out of a tank. As you know, capturing the center is how you win the game. So what's the best piece to capture the center with? A card with big health and big power to take hits and knock that damage right back. So with Heavy Knight going to center, Priest can then heal that Heavy Knight's damage off and help keep it alive a little bit better.
Yep.
On Empire's side, we're seeing a very similar strategy with, instead of Knights, it's Bears. Because again, Bears, big number, that's what you want right in front.
Yep, with the Ursa Major and the Ursa Minor. Now, just to point out on these there, they have the legendary keyword and also the keyword being that at the start of each battle, if Ursa Minor is not in your army, sacrifice Ursa Major. That only happens, as it says, at the start of the battle. If one dies during battle, they're fine, they're still on there. But they are a pair. They come as a duo, shall we say, a sidekick, a superhero team of justice, if you want to go down that route. Ursa Minor Major, they're great cards there. And I love the raw ability on them. I love I love the ability to raw, so combinable, meaning you can move and cast the ability at the same turn, and it just allows you to push a enemy unit 1 hex away on the minor, but really big one there is 2 hexes away on the major. Now this can be used defensively to give yourself a little bit of breathing room. Sometimes it's needed on those nights, stop them from eating some of your squishy units. But I've also seen it recently used like an offensive route, effectively flanking with the major, which isn't easy because only 2 movement. But if you get that flank off to then push them in a direction straight into the path of maybe even a bull elk, which is not really a unit you want to be standing next to, let's be honest.
Yeah, and speaking of the bull elk, the placement of the bull elk I really like. That steadfast keyword means that this card cannot be attacked by a unit that has charge. Charge lets you move and attack with the card in the same turn, whereas normally you could only either move or attack. So having bull elk on the side to protect your flank and your supporting units, I think is a really good idea.
Yep, definitely. Definitely. Now, a side note on that, the Heavy Knight does have the caveats to that, where it does say Heavy Knight may charge units with Steadfast. So it does have the ability to charge into it. It'll be doing 4 damage on charge. Bullock has 6 health, so it's not a 1 hit. And it will be taking some substantial damage back itself as well. But yeah, this is what this phase is all about, right? This phase is all about positioning. You build your army beforehand, you bring your army along, there's no sideboard, there's no spare cards. You are sat down and you're basically placing your cards turn by turn on positioning. Now, it's not exactly turn by turn. You're not doing it 1 card at a time. Obviously, as we said before, in the top right-hand corner of every card, there is a gold value. And if I was to draft 15 gold against yourself, Speed Robo, you would have to then place 15 gold on the board or equal to 15 gold or more to then pass the turn back to me. So it's a way of, I can go really big if I want to. For example, I put down an Ursa Major and an Ursa Minor, instantly taking up 18 gold. My opponent has to match or beat that 18 gold before they pass it back to me.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing we haven't talked about yet, while the players are still picking their spots, is the heroes we brought. Empire brought Kaladrix. Kaladrix is a very sneaky hero that maneuvers, and thanks to the Velocity Greaves, he can charge in as well. Dex also has a hero that has the ability to give herself charging, Aurelia, with Sun's Fervor. This allows him to give his hero the charging keyword for the turn, fly in, and do some major damage. And we're beginning the battle here. Empire is going first. I would seriously expect to see here, with the Hippogriff, I kind of expect the Hippogriff to be capturing center. Moving from that one flank where there isn't a whole lot of threats, only the one knight, capturing the center. The Ursa Majors can then move in and protect or back up that Hippogriff or kill anything that might take out that Hippogriff. And Bull Elk with its 3 movement can also slide right in and do some damage on that center as well. Like we said earlier, Legacy is Allure. It's a game about capturing that center. It's a bit of a Keen of the Hill back and forth. And that's what I expect. Empire's army is very set up all around threatening that center, but so is Dex. With that knight, with those knights having that 3 movement, every single one of them can threaten that capture point.
Yeah. And the key thing to note about the Hippogriff, some people might be saying, well, putting it there isn't going to get 1 hit. It would pick up the 1 shield on center, and it also has a very tasty keyword, Encounter Struck, meaning that even if it was to die to a hit, it would do its retaliation damage at the same time the attack initiates from the attacking team, so they would trade on damage. So it's a really, really key keyword to have there. And the Gladehawk going up there, 2 gold being taken out by the Crossbowman, coming in with a charging. I really like this card, Crossbowman. It comes in with the, if Crossbowman attack an exhaust unit, it gets +1 power this turn, so it gets the 2 damage. It doesn't need it against Gladehawk, but it's nice to have. Now, was that a bait? Was that baiting something out? Was that Empire saying to Dex, hey, come and take this? I want you to put a card in a position that you don't want it to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was completely bait. The Gladehawk in this matchup isn't going to be doing a whole lot. Knights take 1 less damage from attacks by the Gladehawk due to their armor keyword. So that Gladehawk's 1 power doesn't do much. You just want to use it to get that action out there and to try and bait out a move from the opponent. You know, very chess-like action, setting up some gambits, setting up some trades in your favor. With Empire having, you know, the only real threat to that Gladehawk in that position being the Crossbowman. Crossbowman is worth 1 more gold than the Gladehawk. So Empire here can use one of his cards to take that Crossbowman back, and all of a sudden, that's a trade where he is up 1 gold. And that's not nothing. Like, as you'll notice in Grandmaster games in chess, you know, 1 pawn lead can be the difference. 1 point, 1 pawn can be the whole difference in the game. And it's the same thing with Legacy's Allure. That 1 gold, that can swing the whole game.
Yep.
So right now, we've got Aurelia moving to center and activating Solar Aegis. This means she cannot be attacked this turn.
Yeah.
So it's a good way to capture center.
Indeed, indeed. Now, you mentioned before, and this goes back to the versatility of the game and how the creativity comes in with the hero building is, as you said, Velocity Greaves giving, the Kaladrix charging, but then Aurelia can give herself charging with the Sun's Favor, and it's very much a real kind of tactical game of how do you build your hero through items and abilities. Some abilities can be aggressive, but then you can not take those abilities and go for defensive items, and it's a real nice way of kind of managing your build. And it's like your hero is the center point, the real cornerstone of your kingdom, and the most powerful unit, or potential to be the most powerful unit, because you can basically invest in them a unit. So it's nice to see they've kind of gone for similar matchups here in terms of the charging, the aggressive nature on the heroes, but they've done them through, one's done them through the item, and the other one has done them through the abilities there. And sorry, I was talking over the play there. We saw exactly what we were talking about earlier. Ursa Major coming in, use that Roar 2 to say, hey, I can't attack you, Aurelia, but I can sneeze on you with a pretty large sneeze and send you back 2 hexes and let you sit over there now. Your 4 shield is massive as well over there. And then the Knight coming in to do the damage and taking the retaliation damage. Is that a brave move with the Knight, putting the Knight in that kind of tricky position there? Or do you think the Knight's pretty safe with that armor 1?
I think the Knight is very safe with that armor 1. You can look at the surrounding threats to that Knight and see how everything can only deal about 2 damage to it. And Dex has 2 priests and a shield bearer waiting in the back to heal up that Knight if it gets dangerous. I think that's a very prime play. It's an aggressive play, but right now, given the setup, Dex is going to have to be the aggressor. And like we were talking about factions and how each faction kind of has their own sort of style they lean into, Sylvan definitely leans more in towards the defensive camp, whereas Arengard's more mid-range, more jack-of-all-trades, more flexible. So usually in this matchup, Sylvan versus Arengard, you're going to be seeing the Arengard player, the blue player, taking a more aggressive stance, and Dex is absolutely filling that role right now. We got Kaladrix coming in, and he is going to do a huge pure damage Blade Echo, and that's both of Kaladrix's abilities, so let's pull that up right now and let's talk about them. Blade Echo allows Kaladrix to deal his damage as sort of like splash damage. You know, anybody who's next to him and his target is taking the hit from that sword. And True Strike lets him turn his damage from physical damage into pure damage. Pure damage is damage that ignores any other effect, anything that would reduce it, so it goes straight through the Knight's armor, just like it's shown in that artwork.
Yeah, like, exactly that. And it's I just want to go back on the point you said where the Arengard want to be a bit more aggressive here, get those Knights in there, cat among the pigeons, shall we say, and really kind of disrupt what Empire's trying to do with the Sylvan army. I feel like that's one thing definitely, or do you feel that's one thing that the newer players to the game are more reluctant to? They feel like they need to be more defensive because they're worried about putting units out there to die and not quite getting the grasp of, hey, effectively your Knight has 7+ health, 6 health, and then 1 armor that blocks 80% attacks throughout the game anyway. Would you say that's something the new players struggle to get their head around in not being aggressive, and they kind of sit back a bit too much?
I actually find it's generally the opposite, you know, because, and this is kind of the whole thing in chess as well. Like, as a former chess pro, I saw this a lot with the people I was coaching, you know, the newer players to the game, learning the nuances. It's fun to move your pieces and throw them out there and do big, grand, heroic charges on the battlefield. But, you know, sometimes that's a really good way to get your men offed rather than going for the more defensive tactical victory. So I would say for new players, do a better job, do the best you can in reading the situation and knowing when is a good time to go aggressive and when is a good time to actually pull off a sort of tactical retreat and hold back a little bit and let your opponent come to you. There's a time for being aggressive and there's a time for being defensive. And I've seen newer players of the game lean in both directions, going more aggressive or going too defensive. Yeah. It really comes down to play style.
Of course, yes. Absolutely. And you see the squad there coming up and taking just coming over their territory line and just starting to get into the midfield. Maybe again, it's easy to sit here and say, "Oh, that's potentially a bait move, or that's this move." We don't know. These players are thinking 2, 3, 4 moves ahead, as you do in chess. You're trying to set stuff up. You're trying to think about what's happening in round 2. Decision that's going through people's minds soon, saying we're about halfway through the round, is: do I want initiative next round? Am I willing to give up initiative next round? Because whoever takes the last action in round 1 will start second in round 2, so they'll lose the initiative. And that's a really big thing in this game, right? Having the first say in a round can be huge when the board effectively resets in terms of exhausted units.
That's right. And I actually want to talk a little bit more about Squire and why Squire doesn't look like a cool card, but he really is. He is one of the few units in Arengard with allied pathing, which lets him move through your other units. So he's a super maneuverable, super flexible fighter for a very cheap amount of gold. I mean, that 2 power, that really comes in handy in a lot of situations, especially against Sylvan, where the majority of their units' health is either 2 or 4. And 2 power obviously immediately takes out a 2 health card. But a card being at 4 health, you deal 2 damage to it and it's half dead. You just put another 2 on it and it's good. It's a really solid breakpoint on power. So I think Squire is going to, in some ways, be almost like MVP in this matchup. I'm really excited to see what Dex can do with this card.
The unsung hero of this Arengard army. But we see obviously Dex on the clock, and it's now comes to a time where starting to decisions are really carrying weight. I mean, decision carries weight in this game the whole time, but you don't want to give up any inches now, not even a centimeter. One card I want to speak about, because I've been seeing it played more and more recently, is actually a card I think Dex is going to use now, is the Spellbreaker. This card is for seven gold. It's an incredibly strong card, and I think it's actually a lot more versatile than I initially gave it credit for. And the main reason for that is the second ability in it, Quiet, which uses give a target unit silence for this round, basically removing its passives. And it's removing its actives, which is huge, absolutely huge. A lot of heroes have actives. So many big cards have actives. And if you're playing against anything that has any splash of magic damage in there, it's like an instant MVP. Like the Spellbreaker is buying the rounds at the end of the fight, no matter what, because they have really succeeded in that war. And we see Dex then bringing up the Heavy Knight, throwing some damage on that Ursa Major, putting him literally clinging on to death's door with 1 health left at the moment, and then taking the 3 damage themselves, but more importantly, taking that center golden hex.
Yeah, we're seeing pretty much exactly what I expected to see here. The Knights are coming in, closing around that center, and then Sylvan's Bull Elks and Ursas are also coming in and, fighting back for that center. Like, the big boys, they're coming in, they're going for the scruff, and then what we're going to be left with at around round 4 is the stragglers, the leftovers. And right now, it's a fight between these 2 players to see which one can hold on to the largest card during this initial skirmish. And so, like, if that Bull Elk's still alive, but all the Knights are down, that is going to be very rough for Dex to come back from, and that's what he does not want to have happen. So, we'll see which player can come out on top in this scuffle.
Indeed. And that Heavy Knight now, Dex losing a Heavy Knight a minute ago to the Bull Elk coming in. That other Heavy Knight now sat on 1 health left, does have the 1 armor, but it's not looking too pretty there. they are cornerstone cards of the Arengard faction. Right? They're heavy knights. They're incredibly strong with their maneuverability, with the damage, the armor. So losing one is a big loss. He really needs to try and keep on to this second heavy knight. He does still have a priest up, and priests do have 4 range. So with a combinable ability, the skill, he can still heal the heavy knight for 2 if he wishes to. A key thing on that, too, as you mentioned earlier in the match, Bull Elk being steadfast. We know heavy knights can charge steadfast, but a crossbowman, cards like that can do the chip damage, it can't attack that Bull Elk because they're steadfast, right? It's a really important thing there. Yep. And now we see the Hippogriff coming in and removing the second heavy knight. 2 heavy knights down in round 1. I'm assuming this is a position that Dex does not want to be in.
This is very much worst case scenario. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, Empire has set up a triangle formation right on that center. And as you know from chess, you get that triangle of your pawns right in the middle, you control that center, and you're in good shape. And it is exactly the same situation here. Those pieces are in that formation. They are protecting each other, and they are holding that capture point. This is going to be a very hard game for Dex to come back from, but it is never over until it is over in Legacy's Allure, with that Spellbreaker coming in to shut down the roar on the Ursa Major. This is going to let the Knight try and swoop in, deal some damage on the back line. If Dex can have his 2 remaining Knights and possibly his hero circle around or fly over the center triangle formation and take out the supports, then he still has a fighting chance.
Yep, indeed. A card that we haven't really spoken about, actually, Witch Hunter, 5 gold, pathing, magic resist free. The magic resist free is not going to come in very handy at all against the Arengard faction. But if this unit is imbued or has maxed mana greater or equal to the max health, Witch Hunter gains charging and +1 power during combat. So it does have the ability on something like Aurelia, right? Or even the Spellbreaker themselves. They can get in there. It's not Spellbreaker, sorry. It's Spellbreaker. I was losing myself then.
I was like, wait, what are you talking about? We do have a Spellbreaker.
It is a Spellbreaker. So Witch Hunter is a card that is the pathing as well. Not being allied pathing mean it can move through any unit, right? It can move through enemy units as well as. Right. And with that potential charging and +1 power for 5 gold, it potentially makes this a 3 damage, 3 movement charging, Witch Hunter, which is kind of terrifying, actually. It's a really strong card that I often overlook when playing Sylvan, but I feel like I definitely should include more.
Yeah, Witch Hunter is one of those cards that, to bring in some TCG terms, I would call it a tech card. You know, you've got your staples that you run at max copies. You've got your cards that you're like, yeah, it's pretty good. You run them at about half, and then you've got your tech options that you run in your deck at 1 and sideboard the rest. Witch Hunter absolutely fits in that category, and Empire showing how to use your tech options correctly, where he brought it at 1 copy and then he put it over on the side. So, you know, it's one of those cards where it's out of the way, it's not in the main action, but if he needs it, it is there to win him that game. And we'll just see how Witch Hunter goes. And right now, it looks like it's on Empire. So Dex is going to be getting the first action next round. We're going to have to see what he does with it. I think Aurelia is probably going to have to put up one of those Solar Aegises to prevent one of Dex's key cards from getting attacked and immediately taken out. This, I mean, you can just look at the gold that's been captured over on the side. It is 2 gold down for Empire and 27 gold down for Dex?
Yep.
I've seen comebacks in worse positions, but this is looking a little rough.
It's definitely a big deficit at the moment. And as you quite rightly said earlier, Empire's setting up a real nice formation around that golden hex. Really kind of just a solid wall of units of just like, you're not getting through. You move one unit from the front line, there is another one that comes in. It's like that old saying, you know, you cut the head off the snake, another one will grow back. And that's literally what's happening here. A woodland snake in the form of a Sylvan faction is just going to be growing head after head after head. and constantly going down. Oh, the Kaladrix coming in with a huge play.
Not what you want to see. Kaladrix's massive Blade Echo just carving through this army. Now, I agree with Dex's play. You got to handle that Witch Hunter immediately. It's just too dangerous to let live. But it just so happened that it worked out that his units were in that perfect, U formation to get hit by all three of Kaladrix's swords with that Blade Echo. And this is going to be tough to come back from. It really is.
Yep, yeah, it really is. I mean, Aurelia sat on the 5 health and the 4 shield, so that's not exactly easy to get rid of, but it ultimately comes down to the fact that Empire doesn't have to be aggressive, right? They have a Bull Elk at 6 health on center. They have an Ursa Minor. They have a Hippogriff. They have an Ursa Major sat slightly further back. They can sit there and let Dex come to them on center hex and then retaliate. Wait for them to get exhausted in melee range and then retaliate.
Exactly. And so for all the lovely ladies and gentlemen at home who are watching this, keep in mind, if you are controlling that center, you are winning. And the winning player, they're already on top of the hill. They can take a step back. They can let you come to them. They control the high ground. It's over, Anakin.
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for it. Every time high ground is said in a sentence, there has to be a Star Wars reference. There just has to be. It's illegal not to. It's actually illegal not to. Now, one thing.
You're required. You're required by initial law. I think it was in the Treaty of Versailles. I
think you're right. One thing I could want to point out here, and this is by no means a selling tactic or anything like that, but these little items you can see here, these turn cards, these attackers and defenders, these really cool cards you can see here. These are custom artwork that have been done for the game, and there's some to represent each faction. And as Speedway mentioned earlier, there is actually a Kickstarter happening right now. Again, all credentials are down in the links below. These are one of the stretch goals. The first stretch goal, actually, is to get you these shipped with your copy of the game. If you back the game at the lowest tier, the physical tier of $40, you will get these included if the stretch goal is hit. And you'll get 3 copies. You'll get one for Sylvan, one for Gaff, and one for Arengard. And they're really nice. I just wanted to point out that I noticed these the other day when I booted up the mod. They're relatively new, and they're really nice. You can see you've got the defender one for Arengard and the attacker one for Arengard, and obviously you've got the attacker one for Sylvan down the bottom. There's also defending one there as well, and one for Gaff. But I just wanted to point this out because I really like them.
Cut off your sales pitch here, but we're going for a big play. Aurelia moving in with the charge to kill off Kaladrix, the enemy hero. This might just be the move Dex needed to turn the whole game around. When your hero goes down, it's by no means game over. You keep playing. It's effectively just another unit on the field, but it is undeniable that your hero is your most powerful and most valuable card. It's like losing your queen in chess, and that is exactly what happened to Empire. That was a hanging hero, and Dex took advantage of that.
Indeed. Well, you mentioned gold count earlier. If we just tally up the items and the abilities alone on Kaladrix, then you're looking at 12 gold just on the items and abilities alone. So it's a 12 gold card effectively. You come in and Aurelia took no damage on that. Still sat there with a 5 health and the 4 armor. And is in range to be charged by someone like a Bull Elk or a Hippogriff, but that 4 shield is kind of just sitting a really, really protective amount. Just kind of sat there and being like, hey, you know what? Come at me if you want. I've got plenty of shield on me. It's going to keep me alive for now.
Yep, that's right. And, the priests cleaning up this last bit of damage that Empire is trying to put on this knight.
Yep.
Yeah, no, this is big. Like that 12 gold swing on that hero helps cover that deficit of the heavy knights. And we were just talking about how these two players, they're always thinking of the next round ahead. It is fully possible that Dex, traded off those 2 heavy knights to get Empire in this position where he can just come in and start sweeping up. As you'll notice, that Wisp was silenced earlier by that Spellbreaker, essentially rendering it inert, meaning that it was completely open for Dex to come in and take with that Knight, regular Knight, not Ultra Knight. That's one of our Kickstarter tiers. Haha, back to Kickstarter.
And also, if anyone's wondering why Northang Hunter came sneaking in there and pushed some damage onto the Knight, didn't take any damage back, it's because backstab. Backstab is a keyword. Remember, all keywords are available on the back of the cards. You can literally look them over them and look at the back of the card. And the backstab is a keyword that basically means it doesn't take retaliation damage. So it deals the damage, doesn't take it back. So that's really strong. They're moving in, poking that damage on that knight. And now knight is the other knight is threatening that Ursa Major. Another really big card, 11 gold. Nearly counts for a heavy knight, which we know obviously Dex lost to earlier. So this is exactly as you said at the beginning, right? These flankers are starting to move around the back, starting to clear out some of these Sylvan supports. But Sylvan are doing exactly the same going up there now. It's starting to stretch out a little bit. It definitely feels like this has gone back to anyone's game compared to where it was at the end of round one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is very open. Anybody could possibly take this. Losing that knight's pretty big, but one thing that has happened is that center's now open. You know, Empire dropping the center. So what I could see from Dex is Aurelia moving in to take center right now and throwing a Solar Aegis on herself to prevent her from being attacked. With the Ursas more or less preoccupied, they're not going to be able to push her off that center right away. And Dex, he might be able to hold it. It's going to be tough, but he might just be able to hold that.
Oh, so we're taking a knight then into the Ursa Minor, putting 3 damage on them, taking the 2 back because 1 armor on the knight negates one of those damages. And pushing it there. Now the major now is threatened. Obviously, if the major takes the priest, which is quite likely, they're going to be out of range from the Aurelia. But if the major doesn't do, the minor doesn't do something soon, then Aurelia's going to be coming in, right? So there we go. We see, we see the minor get so excited it literally jumped off the board.
Yeah, I bet Dex wishes it actually went through with that. But what I could see here is Aurelia coming in and taking that Ursa Minor out. You know, that's something within the realm of possibility. She's got 3 movement, flying, charging. She could do that. Backstabbing 2 shield off. You know, this is getting a little dicey. But yeah, Aurelia coming that charge, taking out that bear.
Yep, indeed.
I think that's correct.
Indeed. And what was nice to see as well on the Spellbreaker, pinging the damage there onto the Hippogriff. Now, it only has 1 range, but 3 damage. Wouldn't take the counter-strike back or the retaliation damage because it is classed as range damage and it's not melee damage. So that's why the Spellbreaker didn't die. But 3 damage, only 1 range, really comes in handy sometimes. It's easy to count that off and go, this is just an ability card, but clearly there, putting 3 damage on a Hippogriff is huge. And now we can start seeing Sylvan really showing off their movement capabilities, bringing in the Taunting Satyr, which is a terrifying card. I absolutely hate that thing. And setting up now and getting another little side wall, shall we say, around the center hex rather than a full wall.
Yeah, what Empire's done is he's relinquished some of his control of the center to get in there and deal some more damage, while still having his units relatively placed well around the center, and he's able to pull this off with his maneuverability that lets his Sentinel and his Guard swap spots with another unit, you know, just keeping them moving, keeping them active. That's the Sylvan way to do battle. And at this point, with only 2 cards left on the board, I really don't see a way for Dex to pull this out anymore. I think there's just too many actions and too much power sitting on Empire.
Yep. And by still having the healing as well, right? With the Mystic. Still have some healing down there. Dex has lost the healing with the Priests. Aurelia coming up for maybe one final soiree and saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to come up here and do what I can do.
Dex, he's moving Aurelia close to center. Okay, I think I see what the plan is. Move Aurelia close to center, but away from his opponent's aggressive options. Try and sort of keep her dancing around the center, and then in round 7, take center, Solar Aegis up, stay protected. That I could see as a viable game plan here.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a game plan that works. However, do you think it is a game plan that is going to be too hard to execute, knowing or seeing how many units Empire has on the board?
I think it would have been a viable game plan maybe last round or the round before. At this point, I think it's just a little bit too late. I think Dex got a little too aggressive and too greedy with those heavy knights early on. I think that's what's going to do him in. I respect throwing those knights in there to deal some damage and try and move Empire out of position, but ultimately I do think it was a maneuver that is going to cost him this game right here, and that is ultimately game as his last units get taken and Empire's control of the center hex. Well played.
Oh, yeah, there we go. So Sylvan taking that one. There was Empire faced off against Dex. It was a great game, as you said. Dex is going to try and be aggressive. It's what Arengard needs to do against that Sylvan. Shut down that movement and that maneuverability. Stop them from kind of flanking around the edges. Unfortunately, though, like you said, losing two heavy knights round one is just... It's no position that anyone ever wants to be in when you're playing Arengard. And unfortunately, Dex found himself in that position. And it was an uphill battle from there. But nevertheless, still a very entertaining game of Blitz Brawl. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us, Speed Robo. It's very kind. And also, guys, make sure there is another video series starting as well, weekly. God, we treat you guys nicely. Called Draft Duel. And you've guessed it, it's draft gameplay. Draft is the traditional gameplay, shall we say, of Legacy's Lore. It's how competitive Legacy's Lore is played. The high-end tournaments are played. Draft, where there is literally a drafting phase and then a gameplay phase. It's a bit more technical. Knowledge of the game is a little bit more kind of stretched, needed, but it's definitely a very enjoyable game mode. So if you're really interested in Legacy's Lore, make sure you check out that series when it goes live every Monday. But anyway, thank you again, guys. Make sure you do check out the links below. Kickstarter page is up now as well. You can grab yourself some exclusive rewards as well as all sorts of goodies. And you'll be, honestly, you'd just quite frankly be stupid not to go and have a look. So go and have a look. Simple as that. Once again, Speed Robo, thanks again for being here, my friend. Thank you for your wonderful analysis. And until next time, guys, we'll see you again. Bye.
Yep. Bye.